Hey moms, welcome to the Goddess Glow in your pregnancy. This class is going to be pretty specific and the focus is the hips. So creating not only stability, but also mobility and flexibility to help with labor and delivery. So this class was inspired by the goddess pose, and the goddess pose is a really great way to strengthen some of the muscles and the tissue to help assist with labor and delivery, and also to make sure that when we have babies, we're still really strong in some of our muscle groups to help create stability in the pelvic floor muscles. So you'll really only need, of course, your yoga mat and 2 blocks, and they can be any size, any height, but something that when you place on your mat, you'll have more stability to help ground and create a little bit more range in the tissues of your hips. So we're actually going to get started in Tadasana, which is our mountain pose. And before we do that, I just want you to place your blocks at the front. So one at the front of your mat in a vertical position. So your whole foot will lay on top of the block, and one kind of at the end of your mat so that we'll be able to use those a little bit later. And unconventionally, we're actually going to start this practice standing. So at the front edge of your mat, you can stand with your feet hip width apart. So finding a comfortable position here, even taking a few soft bends into the knees. So we really want to feel the connection of the mounds of the big toe, the mounds in the pinky toe, and then right on that instep of the heel. So it's more like a tripod stance. Taking a moment, we'll stand up nice and tall. I want you to just gently hug onto baby. So that action feels like maybe there's an embrace in the front of the abdomen, like the sides of the pelvis, just gently squeeze to the midline of the body, just helping to support and embrace your baby. And then we'll place one hand on the heart and we'll gently close the eyes. So start by taking a nice full inhalation, just lifting the breath towards the hand that's on the heart with a big audible exhale out. So one more such, take a nice full inhalation to lift and expand, and then big audible exhale to let go. We're quieting that space between the eyebrow center. Keep your lips together, separate the teeth, and let the tongue slowly fall to the bottom of the mouth. When you inhale, this time we'll breathe in towards the palm of the hand that's resting on your belly, connecting you to your baby and inviting your baby into this beautiful practice, creating that connection and grounding into that goddess energy. So in this next inhalation, hugging onto baby, lift through the crown and the chest to find lots of length as you stand up nice and tall. And you'll automatically perhaps feel the shoulders roll ever so slightly back. So when you inhale, we're rooting through the mounds of the feet, lifting and lengthening through the crown. And upon this exhalation, trying to let go of any tension held in the physical body. So letting go of tension through the shoulders, the spine, and the base of the pelvis. And just noticing what's happening in this foundation. So do you feel the balance between that left and right foot? Can you acknowledge the strength in your legs and the glutes that are supporting the pelvis, the pelvic organs, your uterus, and of course this glowing light that is your baby? And then just allowing the breath to move to its natural and normal pace. So don't try to force the change of the breath, just letting it flow in and out with much ease. And I want you to connect to the hand that's on the heart and acknowledge this warrior from within. The beautiful journey into labor and delivery is about this connection, the connection and the depth going inwards to focus on your body, your breath, your soul, and your spirit that's interconnected with your baby. So at this very moment, letting go of any judgments, any limitations, any expectations from other people on your birth and your journey into motherhood. Trust that you know your body and your baby better than anybody. And so throughout this journey, this connection is about your innate wisdom, is about your connection. It's about your journey, your love, your birth. Remind yourself that you are empowered. You know these decisions when you listen to the promptings of your heart. Whenever you feel throughout your pregnancy that you are not connected into this internal innate wisdom, place your hand on your baby and your hand on your heart and remember the connection between the two. There's this wisdom, this guidance, this knowing that everything will be okay when you place your hand to yourself and you connect. So let's take a deep inhalation all together. Nice, big audible exhale out. Just lowering the palms of the hands for a moment. Taking a little bend into the knees, just sort of lift onto the toes one at a time, just stretching through the feet and the ankles. So we will move into a warm-up. I want you to take your feet just a little further apart. So we'll be moving into a squat position, reaching the arms up and overhead. And then as you exhale, we'll gently bend into the knees, move the glutes back, and just lower maybe the fingertips or hands to the floor. So your blocks are always there to support that assistance if you can't quite reach the fingertips to the floor. And then one at a time, we'll place weight in the hands and we'll walk or step the feet back into a downward facing dog. So we're pressing into the palms of the hands, moving the shoulders away from the ears, and then start to create some movement here with a nice deep bend into one knee, and you can root and press to its opposite heel. So we're just moving from hip to hip and side to side. As you exhale, we'll gently bend into the knees, coming back down onto all fours. So take your knees wide, big toes to touch, reaching the arms forward and the forehead to the floor. You can stack your forearms on top of one another, resting the forehead on the stacked forearms. Moms in the third trimester, you might feel more comfortable with your hips slightly above or towards your knees versus sitting back on the heels. So making any adjustments where you find that level of support. And then on the inhalation here, we're breathing into the back line of the body. So breathing into that lower, middle to upper spine. And as you exhale, let the weight of the sit bones begin to fall back towards the heels. So with one more big breath in. On this exhalation, let's slide the hands underneath the shoulders and we'll press forward onto all fours. So moving through a few ranges of cat-cow. When you inhale, we'll lift the chest forward, roll the shoulders back. A reminder to hug the baby in. And then as you exhale, press through those index fingers and the thumbs to sort of gaze towards the navel. So every inhalation, we lift the chest, shoulders roll back, sit bones lift. As you exhale, push into the palms of the hands, but this time move your shoulders slightly towards your fingers. So then we have a less abdominal sort of pressure. And then just start to follow the movements of your own breath. So every inhalation, nice big movement for that lumbar spine. Big exhale, all about that upper thoracic and neck. Good. Staying once again within your pain-free range of motion. So we need that core support on the inhalation so you don't collapse in the lower belly, lower back, and a nice big exhale to round. Let's find a neutral spine by drawing the sit bones back, crown of the head forward, and then walk your hands about a palm width or half a palm width forward. Curl the toes under, and once again, we'll move into that downward facing dog. So spread the fingers nice and wide. We have a nice big bend into one knee. If you feel lightheaded, keep your gaze to look towards your hands. Otherwise, we're pressing away from the floor. We'll transition to step forward. So sending your shoulders over top of your wrist, step your left foot forward, followed by the right, and they're wider than your hands. So we're taking a nice wide stance. Bring your elbows on your thighs and just lift your gaze to look forward. So we're just pausing here, moving the weight of the sit bones back, and then gently lifting baby from below. If you feel a lot of pressure in your third trimester, push into the legs. We slowly stand up nice and tall, and then you can heel toe your feet towards one another. Nice little bend into the knees, and just lift onto your toes. So now with your feet hip width apart, we'll move through a little bit of a flow sequence to open up our shoulders, reaching the arms up and overhead. And on this next exhale, you'll gently bend into the knees. So I want you to take a quick peek at your legs. Please make sure that you can still see your toes in the pose. So this is our chair pose. Hugging the arms towards the ears. It's all mostly about reaching the ribs away from the hips, creating that hip hinge and drawing the sit bones back. Okay. Keeping the right leg exactly as it is, I'm going to step your left foot only about 2 to 3 feet apart. So the back foot and toe is pointing in the same direction as the front hip and foot. Raising those arms up and overhead and gently find the bend into the right knee so the shin is vertical. So this is warrior one. Take a big inhalation. We're reaching the ribs away from the hips. Okay. We'll work with a few internal, external movements. So big breath in on the exhalation. And we need to take your arms out to the side, reach them back, but open the palms of the hands forward. and then reach your chest and heart forward. So you're leaning over the right leg. So we're creating some external rotation in the shoulders. Inhalation, sweep the arms up and overhead. We're drawing back to center. So that's your movement. Take a big breath in. On the exhalation, we're going to lean forward, roll the shoulders back, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Good. Next exhalation, we're reaching up. So we're just trying to move only on the exhalation in these movements. The reason why is, and there's less pressure on your pelvic floor while we move towards these load-bearing and weight-bearing movements. So big exhale, rotate out, so we're creating nice big circles, palms of the hands open, the movement's always at your shoulders. Exhale to reach up. So one more time, making sure, again, if you feel a tremendous amount of pressure in your low back, we're hugging onto baby, reminding ourselves that they're in this practice as well. And then as you exhale, let's take the hands at heart center and step your left foot to meet the right. Okay, shake out the feet. Nice little wiggle out for the toes, and we'll switch sides. Get a nice big exhale, reach the arms up. Let's bend into the knees. Just check your stance. Make sure your knees are stacked on top, or at least your knees, you can still see your toes in the pose. Stepping the right foot back, only about 2 to 3 feet. So the heel should be pressing down, so we're getting a calf stretch. Both toes and hips are pointing forward. The arms stay up and overhead. Hugging onto baby here. It's not about how far you lean back. We're going to move between a modified warrior 1 and 3. Big breath in. Exhale, we sweep the arms out. Palms of the hands this time are going to face back. So we're kind of internally rotating the shoulders. Exhale, reach the arms up and overhead, pressing into the back foot. So the legs are completely strong. You're moving with your exhalation, and this time, palms of the hands press back. So the shoulders roll forward. So now we're moving into that internal rotation. Pressing into the back foot to help reach the chest and the crown of the heart forward. And you're just moving within your own breath. Good. Inhale on the exhalations. So it's a little bit more of a conscious way to move. Moving the shoulder blades towards one another. Perfect. Lowering the palms of the hands at heart center, leaning forward and stepping that right foot to meet the left. Nice little bend into the knees, lifting onto the toes. Taking the full length of your mat, let's draw the feet about 4 to 5 feet apart. So be mindful here that the toes are pointing forward and the outer edges of the feet are paralleling towards the outer edge of the mat. Rolling the shoulders onto the back, just standing up nice and tall. And then on the exhalation, we'll gently begin to fold forward from the hips. So you have your block to the right, left or right side. If you need it for your hands and your support, especially maybe moms in the 3rd trimester, just know that it's an option to bring your hands towards the block. Otherwise, you can bring the fingertips to the floor. Looking forward, so even if the fingertips just kind of gently rest on the mat, that's okay too. We're lifting through the chest and trying to draw the hips back. So just to change angles to show you, rather than leaning back or leaning too far forward, which we love to do, I want you to center your hips over top of your ankles and to slowly start to walk your hands forward. Almost as if we're presenting a downward dog, upper body, but keeping the hips over top of the ankles. You can bring your gaze to look towards the hands. You can also gently bend into the knees if it feels like it's too much. And as you exhale, we're just hinging forward from the hips, good. Gazing somewhat, maybe in between that space of the feet. So we'll take one more big breath in. On this exhalation, please pivot your toes out to the side and find a soft bend into the knee, lifting baby from below and placing your hands on your thighs. So you'll adjust yourself accordingly until your knees are over top of your ankles. And this is our goddess squat. So depending on your range and your hips, please, you might have to be a little bit shorter, a little bit longer. Just make sure that your knees are over top of the ankles. We'll roll the shoulders back, so we're standing up nice and tall, and then we'll take the arms out to the side. So spreading the fingers nice and wide, just placing, of course, a little bit of strength. So this class is going to be focusing on these muscles called your adductors. And in labor and birth, if you choose to push, they become your pushing muscles. So we actually need them really strong. Reaching through the fingertips, we'll take one more big breath in. As you exhale, hands at the waist. Push into the legs, and then start to heel toe your feet towards each other. So have a nice little bend and shake out the legs. So here's a really neat way to move into your standing poses with the emphasis on our hips and those adductors. So I want you just to make sure that your blocks are at least horizontal with me, but that your whole foot is going to rest on the block. So you don't want any part of your foot or ankle drawing off the block. We'll start with the right one first. We're going to bring your right foot onto the block, and then you'll just kind of heel toe this left foot out to the side until we find a stance about 4 feet apart. So just remember, we're not going back too far because we also have to heel toe that foot back in. So the left foot is going to be pointing in a 45. Okay, so a little bit of an angle to make sure that our hip receives this stretch, but it's not too intense. And then you'll bend into the right knee, finding your warrior 2 stance. So knees over top of ankle again. Good. Reaching through the tips of the fingers, soften the shoulders away from the ears. So we'll take a nice big inhalation, pressing into the back foot, and we'll lower the hips and pelvis just a little bit until you really start to feel your adductors engage. Good. Moving this into reverse. So drawing your left hand to the left thigh, reach this right arm up and over. We gently take a lean back, big breath in. We're breathing into these right side of the ribs. And then as you exhale, soften the shoulders away from the ears. So it's not about leaning too far back as it is creating this stability in the front of the right hip. Legs stay the same on the exhalation. Back, reaching over your right fingertips for warrior 2. Push into the back foot. We're going to reach in, lean, so we hinge from the hips, elbow to the thigh. And at first, let's just bend this left elbow, rest the hand at the waist. Moving this right sit bone to the heel of the right foot. So here we can give ourselves permission to go just a little bit further, but the back leg is engaged. Roll this left shoulder back. You can look towards the shoulder, up over the ceiling. This is part 1. If you want to go a little further with your arms, taking this left arm overhead, palm the hand faces down. So we're reaching through the tips of the fingers, pushing into the back foot. Find all that length through the side body. Hugging onto baby if you feel like it's too intense. Okay. Legs will stay the same, so push into the back foot. We hinge from the hips, looking over the right fingertips. One more big breath in. As you exhale, hands at the waist, pivot your left foot out first, and then slowly start to heel toe as you bend into this right knee. Nice little bend into the knees, shake up the legs, and we'll switch to the left side. So with your left foot on the block, making sure again the whole foot is supported. Perfect. You'll heel toe now your right foot out to the side. So taking a stance that feels the most comfortable for your pelvis, especially with weight. Moms in the 3rd trimester, maybe just a little bit shorter of a stance. We move this right hip forward so it's on a 45, and then we'll lunge into the left knee. Knees over top of the ankle, reaching through the tips of the fingers, finding our warrior 1. So shoulders are over top of the hips, shoulders down the back. Hugging onto baby and moving perhaps this left sit bone to the heel of the left foot. Just make sure your knees don't go beyond the toes. So nice charge stance, pressing into the back foot, reaching through the tips of the fingers. We'll move this into reverse warrior. Right hand to the right thigh. We just reach this left arm up. So big breath in through the left side of the ribs. As you exhale, maybe we draw back, but not as important as moving the hips down, or at least the sit bone to the heel of the foot. So coming to that position where you start to feel those adductors, those inner thighs ignite. Pressing into the back foot on the exhalation, we return to warrior 2, reaching over those left fingertips. And then we'll hinge forward. So push into the back foot to reach the armpit forward, elbow to the thigh. Rest the right hand on the waist. Good. Gently leaning back. We're still pressing ourselves away from that left thigh and trying to draw the shoulders on top of one another. You can lean the head back. You can draw the head back ever so slightly, finding that rotation. A little bit more in the shoulders, reach that right arm up and overhead. And then here, I'll move the heel. I'll move that left sit bone to the heel of the foot. Shoulders down the back. Good. Nice strong back leg. Yes, you're definitely going to feel that activation, the right quad, the right glute. And this is where we move into that goddess energy. Take one more big breath in, reminding ourselves just how strong and capable we are. We push into the back foot, reaching over the left fingertips for warrior 2. Hands at the waist. Good. First pivot that right foot out to the side, and then heel toe the feet as you bend into the left knee. Nice little knee bend. Lift onto the toes. Shake out your feet. So place this block that's over to your right side. We'll just turn it in the other direction. We're just going to work with this right foot first. Your feet will once again draw about 4 to 5 feet apart. So let's step the right foot on the block. Toes are pointing forward. whole foot is supported by the block. And then once again, just heel toe that left foot out to the side. So both toes and hips are facing forward. Good. Taking the hands at the waist, roll the shoulders onto the back, standing up nice and tall. Take a big breath in. As you exhale, you can bend into the knees just a little bit and we'll hinge forward from the hips. So hands can be resting on the thighs. You can slide your hands down the shins. If you need the support of that other block for your hands, you can also take your block forward and underneath the hands. Okay. So on this next exhalation, we're going to shift the weight. You're going to push into your left foot and shift the weight over to the right hip or thigh. We're just pausing here for a moment, and then we'll change the direction. Pressing the weight into the right foot, lean over to the left, and I want you to look at your right foot. So that's your next movement. And I want you to move into this hip. This hip elevated is creating more rotation through the hip, deeper adductor stretch, and you're just moving from the left and right side. And you can lean forward so there's no tension in the front of the abdomen. Good. And just play around again within your own range and your flexibility. As long as you stay, please, within that pain-free range of motion. Good. So we're finding different ways to sort of lubricate those hip joints. We'll draw back to center, so knees above the ankles. And here I want you to pivot your right foot so your whole foot's still on the block. Heel to the inner edge, toes are pointing to the outer edge, and then we'll rotate once again this left leg out. So we're in our goddess squat, but elevated. So knees kind of aligned with the shins, hands on the thighs, gently drawing those hips and thighs back. So here's our goddess squat again. So when we elevate, you're going to feel a lot more sensation in the adductors, but also in the glutes. Bring the hands behind the head, interlace the fingers. Okay, strong pose. We're going to push into the left foot, lean over to the right side. Gazing forward, head draws ever so slightly through the palms of the hands, drawing back to center on an exhalation, and now tipping that left elbow over to the left knee. Good. A couple more times. So on the exhalation, remember we're moving to make sure that we're a little bit more supportive in those pelvic floor muscles. I'm feeling it too. One last time, push into that right foot, lean over to the left, big exhalation, drawing back. Hands lower to the thighs, push into the legs to straighten up, and heel toe this left foot in. Wonderful. Whew. Little bend into the knees, shake out the legs, and then we'll switch here. So we always have these blocks handy if we need them. Now we're working with the left leg. So now we'll step the left foot onto the block. Toes are pointing forward, whole foot, whole block. And then just heel toe this right foot out. So as you heel toe the right foot out, you're actually pushing into the left leg to create some energy. And so of course you don't slam. Both toes are pointing forward. The further apart your legs, the more intensity in the stretch. But again, moms in the third trimester, go for that stability. Make sure that you always find support in these poses. Awesome. Hands at the waist, roll the shoulders onto the back, standing up nice and tall. And then as you exhale, we'll gently fold forward. So there can be a bend into the knees. You're moving your sit bones back, fingertips to the floor, or taking that block underneath. So just pausing here for a moment, and then we'll bend into the left leg, bringing your left elbow on the thigh, and we'll push into the right foot. You're moving and shifting the weight from left to right side. So here we're leaning forward, pressing into the block. So the legs are constantly energized in this pose, okay? You can have the support of your elbows on the thighs, but if you really want to work a little bit deeper, keep the chest and heart lifted. Hugging onto baby, I always, as a reminder, when I was pregnant, working with some of these deeper actions, I always place my hand on my baby as a reminder to make sure I'm safe, but also to hug onto baby a little bit so that I'm supported through the spine. And I like to lean into the hip, move the glutes back, maybe the chest and heart forward. Yeah, it's such a nice way to move into the hips and the pelvis. Awesome. Last time, we're going to shift the weight back to center, hands on the thighs, adjust your feet. So now your toes are going to point out to the side. Your heel is still on the inside of the block, toes point forward. So make sure your knees are over top of the ankles, and then we'll lift the arms up. Interlace the fingers behind the head, draw the elbows back, lower the seat. Unless you feel tension in the pelvis, then you can come up a little bit higher. But really want to charge the glutes. Leaning over to the right side, so push into your left foot. Nice big stretch into the side body. Exhale back to center. We now push into that right foot to lean over to the left side. So at least 2 more times. Pelvis stays exactly as it is, so nothing moves in the hips, the pelvis, and the legs. Good. Pressing into that right foot, lean over to the left, draw through the crown of the head, and then last time, shoulders over top of the hips. Lower the palms of the hands to the thighs, strong legs pressing into the earth. Heel toeing that right foot in as you bend the left knee. A nice little knee bend and onto the toes. We'll drop back over to this right side, and once again, you'll pivot the block. So the nice thing is just use your feet. You don't need to bend down, so I like working with the blocks during pregnancy. And just move it in that horizontal position if you're facing forward. So we want the whole foot on the block again. We'll place the right foot on the block. You'll heel toe that left foot out about 3 to 4 feet apart, and the toes and hips are pointing to a 45-degree angle. Raising the arms to shoulder height. This time we're going to keep the legs straight and move into a triangle. We'll hinge from the hip, so move your left hip away as you lean as far over to the right, placing the hand on the shin, and once again bend your left elbow, rest the hand at the waist. So if you feel a tremendous amount of pressure behind your knee, just take a gentle bend into the knee, so to engage your quads. This one's really going to pull once again, or really start to stretch and invigorate. It's a nice word, those adductors. So we're leaning ever so slightly back, so our shoulders kind of stack over top of this right leg. Good. Reaching first, this left arm overhead, palm of the hand faces forward, so the shoulders aligned over top of that right leg. Big breath in. Next exhalation, take the arm overhead, palm of the hand faces down. Reaching the fingertips beyond the crown of the head and press the left hip away. So the right hip moves away and the right fingertips draw forward. So lots of space, hugging onto baby if it feels like it's way too intense in the lower part of the spine. One more big breath in. As you exhale, we'll reach the right arm forward, bend into the right knee, hinge from the hips, hands at the waist. Once again, pivot that left foot in. Nice little knee bend, shaking out the toes, and we'll walk over to the other side. So switch your block. So it's sort of the foot length. Placing now the left foot on the block. You can heel toe your right foot out until you're about 3 to 4 feet apart. Wherever you can go where there's ease, and especially coming back into the pose. Ideally, we would like the left leg straight, but making sure there's that gentle micro bend. Big breath in. As you exhale, hinge forward. So we're moving the right hip away. Want to lengthen through the side body. Hand falls to the shin. Bend the right elbow, hand at the waist. So here we take a gentle lean back. Maybe a slight bend into the knee, especially if you're in the 3rd trimester, finding our shoulders over top of the hips. Get reaching now, that right arm up, palm of the hand facing in the same direction we're gazing, and then eventually we take this arm up and overhead. So shoulder away from the ear, extending the fingertips beyond the crown of the head, and move the right hip away. So again, crown of the head, sit bones back. Get all the while breathing into the side body, trying to create space for those growing babies. Hug in towards the lower belly, giving your babies a nice gentle embrace. We'll bend into the left knee, reaching the left arm forward, hinging from the hips, hand at the waist, and then we'll heel toe that right foot in. Good. As always, shaking out the legs. So you'll be happy to know that we're not using the blocks for this next pose. At least your adductors will be pretty happy. So we need these muscles strong, mostly for endurance. Not that I'm a huge advocate for pushing a lot in your labor and delivery. So we have contractions that start at the top of the uterus, and it's helping to kind of squeeze and push the baby down and in towards the pelvis. So sometimes it's just nice to allow the body to move into that space without forcing it. So we'll come back, of course, once again into our goddess squat. With your toes pointing out to the side, I want you to bend your knees and just lower into your goddess squat position. So you might have to kind of move your feet out a little bit, look down. Perhaps your knees are over top of the ankles. We're standing up tall. Good. Hands are gently pressing against the thighs to create that stretch. We'll move this right shoulder towards the left knee and just pressing into that right hand to create that stretch in the back. On the exhalation, shoulders over top of the hips, and then we can lean forward here. Now trying to move the left shoulder towards the right knee. So every exhale, we'll lift back up, and then we'll lean to the other side. So you're pressing into that right hand to create that stretch. Good. Once again, back to center. Moving on the exhalation. If you need a little extra, Contraction, feel like you're lifting baby from below. Let's draw back with the shoulders over top of the hips, leaning slightly forward, hips back. And then we'll work with some calf raises. So I just want you to try to lift your left heel off the floor. And only if there's no tension, no pressure, no pain in the pubis. So the pubis symphysis, pubic bone, get little calf raise. And all we're doing here is working with the calves. So we get those awesome calf cramps at like 2 or 3 in the morning that wake us up. And it's not necessarily tightness in the cramps as much as it is about the water or the fluid being drained from the calves. So this is still a nice little way to kind of invigorate the tissue in the calves, right? Creating some fresh oxygenated blood towards the legs. So we'll end off with this right heel. Good. Hinging from the hips, bring the fingertips to the floor and then point your toes forward. As you exhale, and if it only feels comfortable, you can keep your gaze to look forward. You can bend your knees, bring your hands on your thighs. Otherwise, if you feel as though you're not lightheaded at this moment, and just allow the upper body to draw forward. So a nice kind of reprieve. Take a big breath in. You can even walk the hands slightly back. And on the exhalation, we just allow the upper body to draw down. Thighs are strong, hinging from the hips, lifting the hips and the glutes up, maybe finding a soft bend. Let's look forward. So walk the hands in front, bend your knees, place the hands on the thighs, toes are still forward, and then we'll slowly push into the legs, standing up nice and tall. You can heel toe those feet towards each other. Little bend, shake out the feet. Let's turn once again to face towards the front of the mat. So with your feet a little further than hip width apart, we will be moving into a squat. You can also take the arms out, but this one isn't as deep as we've been working with. Take the arms up and overhead, just soften the shoulders into the back. Let's gently move the glutes back as you tip and hinge from the hips, bringing the hands to the floor. So then you'll walk your left foot followed by the right into that downward facing dog. Spread the fingers nice and wide. Let's move from hip to hip. So nice deep bend into one knee, rooting and pressing through its opposite heel. Good. And then on the exhalation, we'll gently bend into the knees, coming back down onto all fours. Take your knees wide, big toes to touch, forehead to the floor, and soften through the tops of the shoulders. So deep inhalation, we're just breathing into that lower middle to upper spine. And on the exhalation, just allowing the weight of the sit bones to fall back towards the heels. One more big breath in. On the exhalation, sliding the hands underneath the shoulders, and we'll just press forward onto all fours. So I want you to lay just over onto your right side. We'll work with a few positions here. So what I absolutely love about these side laying positions is if you're watching this video for the first time, you know how much I love side laying positions, moving into labor and delivery. It's really great, of course, because we can start to move the sit bones wide when we're ready for delivery. But if you have a lot of SI pain, it's nice to create this gentle compression on the side of the hip where you're feeling a lot of tension. Maybe, could be the opposite. Here would like your right elbow underneath the shoulder. So we're gently pressing ourselves away. There's a little lateral stretch. So moms in the third trimester, if it feels like it's too much, your option is to also lay the right arm straight with your ear on top of the arm and your left hand in front. So that's the modification. We'll set up the legs. We're going to flex the feet. Toes are pointing forward and the feet and hips are stacked on top. So we want just a little bit of a lean forward. Yeah. Shoulders are also stacked on top. So we want to feel like the weight wants to come forward or back. We're staying right on the center so the hips stay stacked on top. Okay. So you know the modification if the arm feels too intense, or at least the shoulder. We'll go ahead and bend this left leg. Now you can place the foot on the inside of the calf between the knee and the ankle, or going a little further once again into those adductors, abductors, your outer hips as well, bringing the foot to the inside of the thigh. Totally depends on flexibility. Either way, we're drawing that shoulder away from the ear, pushing into the back foot. So as you exhale, what's happening is here is we're gently rotating the hip out and back. So feeling more of a stretch. So a little demand on those inner thighs, but we have a nice strong bottom leg working with this hip stretch. One more big breath in. Doesn't it look so relaxing? On the exhalation, we'll bend both knees, bring them just a little bit closer. So the knees aligned with the hips still stacked on top. We'll pick this left leg up so it hovers, flex both feet, left hand at the waist, and then as you exhale, you're going to push into the left leg. So what I want you to do is really focus on squeezing the glute as you push the leg away, as well as perhaps the quad. So bringing the leg back in, take a nice big inhale. As you exhale, push. So it's like you're doing a slow karate chop. Think about more of the outer edge of your heel and the outer edge of the foot kicking forward. So what you should feel is a pretty big, deep glute burn. Sometimes we don't need all those standing poses to really effectively and efficiently contract and squeeze the glutes. So take it slow. There's no rush. On the exhalation, push. Outer edge of the foot nice and strong. Give the glutes a really good squeeze. Good. One last time. We'll press the foot away. Wonderful. Exhale. Let's bring the leg back in. So we're going to switch the legs. I'm going to bring the left leg behind you and the right leg in front. So look at your right knee. It should align with the hip, and also this back leg. Knee aligns with the hip. You can adjust the shins a little bit, or at least the feet. So we're in a 90-90 position on our side. Now this is probably part one. The more you draw this left leg back, the deeper the stretch. So you can go ahead and switch the leg or move that left leg back. If you want a little bit more intensity and you're familiar with the practice of yoga into dancer's pose, you can reach your left hand back for the left ankle. And then we gently begin to move the foot back, the foot and the leg back. So you're not leaning back. We're not pushing the hips and the pelvis forward. We're just moving the leg back. Or bend your top elbow, that left elbow, and move the heel to the sit bone for a quad stretch. So please make sure you're not overstretching the front of the abdomen. You're not putting a ton of pressure in the low back. We're still pressing away from the floor. We kind of forget about that right shoulder. So one more big breath in. And then as you exhale, just release that top leg. We need a break in between, especially for our shoulders. They're working pretty hard for us. So straighten the right arm. Rest your right ear on your right arm or shoulder, left hand in front. Let's just close the eyes. So take a nice big breath in, big exhale out. So goddess energy also really works with the support of the floor, right? With the support of earth energy, of course. And we like to be on the floor when we move to labor and delivery, or at least feel this grounding sensation. There's always this instant need and urge to draw down, of course, when we're laboring, because we're moving baby into the pelvis and towards, of course, the pelvic floor muscles and eventually into the birth of our beautiful little babies, or your beautiful babies, because I have already birthed my 3. Take a big inhalation as you exhale. Push into this left hand. Easiest way is just to sort of switch, so you can swing your legs over to the right side, and then we'll draw down now onto the left arm. So still facing forward here, elbows underneath the shoulder. I chose to film this video on the hottest day. So I'm actually in my basement, which is so cool, and I'm dying. So here we'll stretch the legs. Feet are stacked on top, so the feet are flexed, toes pointing forward. Remember, you can draw the left arm if it feels like it's way too intense. There's a lateral stretch here, which can feel kind of nice, especially a bit on the hip flexors and into the shoulder. Just make sure there's not a lot of tension on the shoulder. Bottom leg, that left leg is going to stay straight, and this time we'll bend the right knee. So foot to the inside of the shin, or bringing it up towards the inside of the thighs. And we're just gently drawing the right hip back. So opening up through the tips of the fingers. Sometimes it's nice to even place the arm overhead. So what I like to do with this arm is, if you place the arm overhead, you can kind of connect the elbow, allow the hand to feel heavy. So it might open up a little bit more through the lateral stretch, sometimes even taking that arm up and overhead as if you're stretching when you get out of bed. On this next exhalation, we'll bend both knees. So we're going to bring them in front, stack them on top of one another so that the hip creases align with the knees. Place your right hand on the right waist, pick the right leg up, flex the foot, and then again, slowly start to kick the left heel. So there's this conscious awareness on the outer edge of the foot, keeping that internal rotation. So big breath in, pressing through the heel of the foot, slow and steady movements. Okay. We're also compressing this bottom leg, this left hip joint, so that we can isolate that right. So it's all about the glute. When you straighten the leg, squeeze your glutes. We need strong glutes to help with the pelvic floor muscles, especially during postpartum health and healing. Awesome. So there's always a reason why, the intelligence of the body. This time we'll draw the legs apart. So you're going to send this right leg back, knee aligns with the hip, Hiking this left leg up very slightly. So the legs are always 90-90. Press away from this left shoulder, lots of space between the shoulders and the ears. So third trimester mums, depending on how much you move that right leg behind, it's going to be a pretty intense stretch. You can pause here. If you have the availability to pick up your right ankle, reach your right hand back for your ankle. Okay, so it's not about kicking the foot away as much as it's moving maybe the heel to the sit bone. The hips and pelvis still press forward. You can move the leg back a little bit, but don't overcompensate in the back or the abdominal wall. So you really want to feel strong. You want to hug onto baby in this pose and really let this stretch happen in the quads. So this is a great way in your third trimester, if you don't love to stand, to do some of these quad stretches. You can lay down on your side. So then we'll slowly release, bringing that right leg forward. Please stretch the left arm out. Good, rest your left ear on your shoulder, right hand in front of you. And here, once again, we'll pause. So nice, deep, connected breath in. Big exhale out. So just feeling the support of the floor behind you. Reminding yourself as you move towards motherhood that you're supported. You're supported by your partner. You're supported by your friends and family. And you'll be supported by other mothers along this journey with you, whom you'll meet inevitably and who you'll spend a great deal of time with. We'll take one more big breath in. As you exhale, let's push into this right hand and we'll slowly draw the legs in front and move into a cross-legged position. So find a nice, easy cross-legged pose. We'll work with a twist here. Bring the right hand over to the left knee and the left hand back behind you. First, roll the shoulder back, sit up nice and tall. So big breath in, lifting the ribs away from the hips. And then as you exhale, we gently open up to the left side. So our twists in prenatal yoga are ever so gentle, making sure that the abdomen is soft and we're looking over that left shoulder. So big breath in, pressing into the fingertips, lots of weight through the sit bones. And then as you exhale, can you release into the lower part of your spine? One more big breath in. On the exhalation, square the shoulders forward and we'll switch. So left hand to the right knee, right hand back behind you. Roll the shoulders back, sitting up nice and tall. Take a big breath in. So slow and steady movements. As you exhale, we begin to open up to the right. So you're gazing over the right shoulder. Please check in to make sure that the belly stays soft. No twisting, no tension in the lower part of the belly. And you can look over that right shoulder to increase the stretch in the left side of the neck. So take a big breath in. And as you exhale, square the shoulders forward. Good. Stretch out the legs as always. Little shake out. Moving into your non-dominant direction. So the opposite shin is in front, should feel just a little funny. We'll take the right hand to the left knee and we'll exhale, reach this left arm up and over. So gazing forward, take a deep breath in through that left side. And then as you exhale, we gently begin to fall over to the right side. So pressing down through the left sit bone, reaching up through the left fingertips, shoulder tracks away from the ear, and we're gazing forward. We'll press down into that left sit bone and we'll switch sides. So we have the left hand over to the right knee, right arm up and over, shoulder away from the ear, gazing forward. Now we have a big breath in through this right side, and then as you exhale, we gently fall over to the left. More important, are both sit bones even, reaching up through the tips of the fingers, and then grounding down into that earth energy. One more big breath in. As you exhale, press into that right sit bone, and we'll lift back. Stretching the legs in front, taking them a little bit wide. Nice little shake out. So you will need your block one last time for this pose, maybe. It's a little bit of a harder hip stretch. We've kind of done all this work to get to this pose. So I want you to move your right shin parallel to the front of your mat. Find a lot of flexion in the foot so the toe is pointing forward. And then with your middle finger and next finger, grab a hold of the back of your left knee, move the knee towards the shoulder, and place the ankle on the thigh. So what we're looking at is the shins are stacked on top of one another. This one's called Agni Tambasan fire log. So we have lots of foot flexion. So if you're leaning over and the knee is quite high, which is often the case, here's your modification number one, is to place your left foot in front of the right knee. Modification number two is to place the block underneath the left foot. Lots of flexion in the feet. Let's bring the hands behind the back and sit up nice and tall. So have a big breath in, lifting through the chest and the heart. And then as you exhale, can you feel weight in the hips? So connecting through the sit bones, allowing that left hip to just unfold on its own. If you're going a little further, I want you to press into the fingertips and slowly begin to hinge forward from the hip. So please stay within your pain-free range of motion. This is one of our deeper hip stretches, so really important to back off if it feels like it's too intense. Remember, you have all that relaxin running through your body, so you only need to go about 70% of maybe where you want to go versus where your body feels the most capable. Send the shoulders over top of the hips. We'll stretch that left leg forward, followed by the right. Nice little shakeout. Okay. We got to honor that each and every single day of our yoga practice changes. So what you could do yesterday is probably going to change with what you feel as though you can do today. And that's okay. Be really kind and patient with yourself and your body. So your middle finger, index finger behind the knee joint. Move the right knee towards the shoulder. And then flexion through the foot, placing the shins on top. So when we look down, the shins are stacked on top. So this bottom heel underneath the top knee. So if it feels like it's way too much of a demand on your hips, please place the foot in front of the knee as modification number 1. And 2 is to place your foot on the block in front. We have foot flexion to keep the ankles and the knee safe. Hands behind the back. So sit up tall. So we do press a little weight into the fingertips to feel like our pelvis is maybe just a little bit lighter. Take a big breath in. So I want you to close the eyes and then use the exhalation to let go. There's an essence of surrender in our practice of yoga, just as there is an essence of surrender into your labor and delivery. So on this exhalation, we begin to hinge forward from the hips. So we're tipping the pelvis forward, moving the sit bones apart and drawing the flesh of the sit bones back. Shoulders stay on the back so the chest and heart stay lifted. The spine is nice and long. And hug onto baby if it feels like it's way too much in this pose. Please stay within that pain-free range of motion. This is a big one. With one more big breath in, on that exhalation, let's send shoulders over top of the hips. You can uncross that left leg, followed by the right. Get a little shakeout. So we've done a lot of work today. I want you to get yourself ready for Shavasana. Please have maybe a block or a pillow just to find some support. I do want you to lay on your left side. So you can take that pillow underneath your head, just shift your weight, and we'll draw the block in between the knees. So you can have the pillow underneath or folding the arm, also nice, just making sure that the head and neck feel elevated or the head and neck feel supported. And then we'll place this free hand, that right hand, on your baby, and we'll close the eyes. So the knees should still feel like they're stacked on top, so we find that balance in the hips. Take a nice big breath in towards the chest and the heart with a big audible exhale out. So one more such nice full inhalation to lift, and then big audible exhale to surrender. Space between the eyebrows, stay relaxed. Your lips are together. Separate the teeth. Let the tongue slowly fall. With each and every sensation of your exhalation, feel as though the physical body begins to sink deeper and deeper into the mat. Letting go of any residue from your practice, any physical tension or tightness. So that can be in through the shoulders, the spine. We did a lot of work with the hips today. Even trying to release into your glutes. So feeling the heaviness of the right hip sink towards the floor with each and every exhalation. Also, just as important is to release any emotional or mental stress or strain that no longer serves you at this very moment. So as new moms, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So trying to release any of those expectations, those limitations, those judgments that we place, of course, on ourselves, but also the pressures of those from others in our lives. What the whole journey of motherhood teaches us is that we are entering into this space of the unknown. The journey into labor and delivery cannot be controlled. All you need to do throughout this entire process is place that hand on your baby and that hand on your heart and go inwards. We need to feel every single movement of our body, every single movement of our breath. We need to connect with the energy and the soul of our baby. There's this communication between mother and baby. you instinctively know, when you trust your intuition, you instinctively know when things are good and when things are not. So whenever these fears come in, place your hand on your baby and your hand on your heart and connect the two. Communicate with your baby, talk to your baby, send these warm, positive affirmations to your baby. You can repeat after me to yourself the affirmations as follows. Believe them with all of your conviction, all of your authority, all of your love, strength, and wisdom. I am strong. I surrender to the unknown. I am a good mother. I love my baby, and my baby loves me. I am love. I am a goddess. I am wise. I trust my intuition. I know my baby, and my baby knows me. I am supported. I am connected. Taking a deep breath in, nice big audible exhale out. Just staying with the natural, spontaneous movements of your breath. I'm going to leave you here today. Please have a wonderful rest of your day. Be kind to yourself. And remember just how powerful, strong, and beautiful you are from both the inside and the out. Namaste.